What is the Trump effect? Donald Trump, former president of the United States, coming back into power. This is a huge change for the world. It's a tectonic shift from the Biden approach, the Biden philosophy, and Biden's physical, mental, and political weakness to Donald Trump, physically strong, politically very strong, stronger than he's ever been, actually, and mentally. I mean, you could debate it, right? All his critics say he's crazy, but the American people overwhelmingly ratified Donald Trump coming back into power and rejecting the Biden-Harris approach. Now, the question is, what is the Trump effect? How is Donald Trump changing the world already, and where are we going in 2025? Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg, founder and editor-in-chief of All Israel News, and I want to take a few moments because there are some major things happening. The first thing, of course, is the hostage deal. Now, as I record this, the deal looks like it's going to happen, but there are a few bumps, there are a few glitches, and things are being worked out. But it was Trump himself who announced to the world on Wednesday, January 15th, that the deal was done. That, and for all intents and purposes, it was going to happen, and the hostages were going to be released very soon. We learned that the hostage negotiations had been successful because Donald Trump put the word out in his social media platform known as Truth Social. That was even before the rest of the media reported it. This is before the Biden administration reported it. So Trump went on the offense. Why did he do that? Because he had sent his own team to work closely with the Biden team, but to get done what the Biden team hadn't been able to get done in 15 months, or let's say at least in 1 year, in which Biden certainly gets credit for the hostage deal that he put together in November 2023, in which released 105 hostages out of Gaza, out of the control of the Hamas terror tunnels in Gaza. That was 105 people, but that was in November 2023. For the last year and a quarter, nothing else has happened. There had been no deal done. Hamas didn't even want to come to the table. Trump wins. Trump starts giving ultimatums that if Hamas doesn't release the hostages, there will be, quote, all hell to pay. And suddenly, Hamas decides they're coming back to the table. Then Trump sends his own negotiators to be part of this, particularly a businessman that he's very close with, that he's appointed to be his special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff. I mean, Trump's not even in office. It wasn't even in office, and Witkoff isn't even officially part of the White House staff or the State Department staff, but he goes to Qatar. He participates, actually starts leading the negotiations with Biden's team. I'm not discrediting or discounting the role that Biden and his team played, but the entire dynamic changed because of Donald Trump. His huge election, his forceful and consistent threats and ultimatums against Hamas, and then his own personal involvement with Steve Witkoff and his team, pushing to get a deal. And it seems like the deal is done. If that's true, if the deal holds and the hostages do start to be released on Sunday and going forward, this, even now, Democrats are beginning to give credit to Trump. Israelis are giving credit to Trump. It's not that they're trying to be disrespectful of Biden and his team, but the dynamic changed. The Biden team wasn't making progress, and then suddenly Trump comes in. That is part of the Trump effect already. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Events started to change just from the election before Trump had even taken office. Let me give you another example. So Canada, right? Now, Canadian and U.S. relations overall are good, but under Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, things have become very sour between the United States and Canada. Justin Trudeau is a total progressive, a leftist, and was taking Canada in a direction that many Americans did not like, many Canadians did not like. Trudeau's polls, his approval ratings were plunging, and the Canadian conservative movement was soaring, but Trudeau was still the president, or the Prime Minister of Canada. Now, what happens? Trudeau goes to Mar-a-Lago after the election in the United States and meets with Donald Trump. Donald Trump basically challenges him and said, we want a better trade deal. We want, you guys aren't treating the United States well. And you know what? I ought to just make you I just ought to incorporate you into the United States, and you should be the 51st state. Trudeau was shocked. I mean, this is just not the type of language that most world leaders use. I'm going to take over your country and make you part of mine. Now, Trump doesn't actually mean that he's going to, annex, our northern neighbor, but he wanted to challenge Trudeau and say, Trudeau, you're a failure in your own country. Your own people see you as a failure. So stop resisting the type of cooperation that the United States and Canada ought to have. Canada's our biggest trade partner. And there's no reason why we shouldn't have better trade relations. But it was Trump pushing, and actually mocking Trudeau. What happens? Trudeau resigns. He goes back home, he licks his wounds, he assesses his situation, and he decides, there's no future for me politically. And he resigns. He doesn't even call an election. He doesn't wait till the end of his term. He resigns. So now Canada is going to elections. This is the Trump effect. Trump wasn't even the president as these two events happened, the hostage deal and Trudeau resigning. But it's the effect that Donald Trump is already having. Now, there are a few other things to watch. I think the Russians and the Chinese and the Iranians, North Korea too, but mainly the Russians, the communist Chinese, and the Iranians are really worried. I think the most worried people on the planet right now, aside from Justin Trudeau, but he's already made his decision, are Vladimir Putin, the Tsar of Russia, Xi Jinping, the horrible communist, thuggish dictator of communist China, and the supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei, who's close to death anyway. But these three leaders and their inner circles are terrified. Of what? Of the Trump effect. They are already having to recalculate. Why? Because let's just take China. China wants to invade Taiwan and take it over, or at least bully the democratic Chinese island of Taiwan, bully them into making huge concessions to Beijing, and eventually deciding to rejoin the mainland and become one big unhappy family. And under the Biden weakness, political weakness, as well as his other challenges, personal challenges, health challenges, cognitive challenges, the Taiwanese were worried. They were worried that if there were 4 years of Harris, the communist Chinese might actually invade and take over Taiwan. I have a novel actually coming out in March called The Beijing Betrayal. In part, it's about communist China preparing to invade Taiwan and fund and support radical Islamist terror groups in the Middle East, which China actually is in real life, including building an alliance between Beijing and Tehran, the Iranian leadership. That's what's already happening, but I have a fictionalized version of it in my new novel, The Beijing Betrayal. But in real life, okay, so set aside fiction. In real life, the communist Chinese, Xi Jinping, is having to recalculate his ambitions. His economy is bad, and he no longer has a snowflake in the White House, Joe Biden. And he's not going to have a weak, inexperienced person like Kamala Harris to be the next president. That's what he was hoping for. That's what he was rooting for. It didn't happen. Now Donald Trump and all his strength and all his toughness against communist China is coming back to power. It's the Trump effect. It's already got the communist Chinese recalculating. Iran is obviously recalculating. Trump is threatening that maybe he'll help Israel bomb Tehran's nuclear facilities, or somehow overthrow the Iranian regime. Now, I don't know where Trump is really going to go in terms of the Iranian regime, but nobody does. And Ali Khamenei and his inner circle of lunatics and crazies, they don't know either. Think about it. They started 2024 on the offense, attacking Israel directly and attacking Israel through Hamas and Hezbollah. Now, Hamas is nearly defeated. Hezbollah is nearly defeated. They're whimpering. They're shadows of their former self. And Iran's entire air defense systems around Tehran and its nuclear sites all taken out by Israel. And now Trump is coming back. And Trump is going to stand strong with Israel. That's the perception, right? And so Iran's leadership they're shaking in their sandals. Okay, one more, Russian President Vladimir Putin. Putin has lost 750,000 troops. 750,000 troops, Russian troops have died in Ukraine. Putin can't seem to win. Now, I'm not saying the Ukrainians are winning, but they are fighting bravely for their homeland. And what's going to happen? Suddenly Trump is coming in. And what is he signaling? He's saying, I'm going to bring peace. I can do it quickly. But he's also signaling, I might give the Ukrainians more weapons to give them a little bit better positioning heading into those negotiations. So Putin realizes he's got to back out, he's got to take less, he's got to negotiate seriously. Anyway, every single one of these leaders is recalculating, and so are Democratic leaders too. So, and the last thing I would say is Netanyahu. Netanyahu just said yes, or seems to be saying yes. We'll find out in the next hours and days if he's 100% saying yes to this deal, but his government signaled in the last 24 hours that he's saying yes to this deal, a deal that he didn't want to accept last May when Biden proposed it. It's a slightly different deal, but the situation is very different. Israel has achieved so much more on the battlefield against Hamas than it did in May of last year. And Trump wants this deal. He wants to be able to come into office and say, look, this situation is being resolved and the hostages are coming out. And of course, we want that as well. This is the Trump effect. Every single leader on the planet, especially the bad guys, but even the good guys, are having to recalculate their foreign policy and national security and domestic policy strategies, their own political standing, based on the arrival of Donald Trump. We'll be watching it, we'll be covering it right here on All Israel News. From Israel, I'm Joel Rosenberg for All Israel News.